It is now my final privilege to introduce Governor and Purdue University President-elect, Mitch Daniels. This event is what it is today, the best Boy Scout fundraiser in the country because of his personal interest and dedication to this luncheon. He cares about kids and their families, and that has been obvious over the last 8 years to all of us. And he knows what Scouting does for them. We are grateful for his interest and for the standard that he has created. It is also comforting to know that he'll continue to influence our lives just up the street. Governor Daniels.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you all for being here. Indiana is home. A governor quickly learns to an astonishing number of annual events. And you get invited to damn near all of them. This reminds me to pass on some advice to my good friend Mike Pence. There are tricks people play. They'll say, governors always come. That isn't true. They'll name the events, the governor's breakfast, the governor's prize, the governor's award, you know, something you never heard of before you discover you're now the patron of. All these are wonderful occasions, but life's only got so many days and hours in it. And consequently, there are less than a handful that I have made it my business to go to every year. I name them. I can only name 3. The memorial service on Memorial Day weekend that we have in conjunction with the 500 Festival. An ethics and government and integrity summit that we have that I started to emphasize how essential the highest standards of conduct are throughout government, and this luncheon. Nobody has to play any tricks to get me here. Because, as I've said to the point of redundancy over the years, I don't know a better cause. I don't know a more important endeavor in which people can come together than what is embodied in Scouting and in this event. A hazard of going to something every year is you run the risk of duplication and boring people to death. I got out the chicken scratches this morning from the last several years, remind myself what I said. And in 2005, I talked a little bit about how de Tocqueville never saw Boy Scouts, but if he had, he'd have recognized it immediately as one of those priceless voluntary associations at which he was struck by how American a trait that is. In 2006, I thanked you on behalf of our Department of Corrections. I just spent some time with them trying to figure out, it is very, very hard, almost impossible, to find a former Boy Scout as a guest of one of our correctional facilities. In 2007, when we met, just as we meet now at a time right after an unspeakable, abominable tragedy, we met right after a local atrocity involving, thank gosh, just a single child then. I remember saying to you then, who knows, but if only that guy had been a Boy Scout. In 2008, I talked about how government, for all the work we put in, all the dollars we spend, all the energy it consumes, is always going to be the last line of defense of the vulnerable and the weak and the young. And unless and until we are a society filled with people who are prepared and know instinctively what the right thing to do is, the efforts of government will always be inadequate. Over these years, I've cited books and articles, and there's another one every week, it seems, about the very special problems afflicting young men in our society today. Books with titles like The War Against Boys, The End of Men, one that described Boy Scouts specifically as a parallel universe in which character and morality and patriotism were the natural order of things, so unlike, unfortunately, much of the rest of our world today. And so I've just been saying the same thing to this audience now for 8 years, because the organizers, not me, the organizers, Morris and Golden and Gonzo and the others who have worked so hard on this, have been setting a record every year. I at least have the consolation of knowing that some of you are here for the first time. And you should know, what you might not, there is not another event like it in America. There is not another organization that has achieved what the Central Indiana Council has done. You know, one way or another, I've been saying the very same thing for 8 years. Of all the good causes and all the absolutely necessary communitarian things we do, and we do, I think, so well in this particular state, there is not one organization I can name that matches the needs of our community or our nation better than the Boy Scouts. If the Boy Scouts of America did not exist, we would have to invent it. I don't think I need to go over the numbers again. The incredible difficulties experienced by young men, in particular, young men growing up today so often without a father in the home, so often without a single positive role model, male role model in their life. They might be lucky enough to trip across a coach or a teacher. There might be a extended family relative somewhere, but for millions, there is no one. So how could they know? How could they know what responsibility is, what character is, what the basics of right or wrong are? Who would ever, where else would they ever have run across any single line of the Scout Code, the Scout Creed? And we know the results. They don't change except to become worse. Twice the likelihood of becoming child abusers, twice the likelihood of drug abuse, more than twice the likelihood of going to jail, close to twice the likelihood of committing suicide. Now, into a few of those young lives, too few, comes the Boy Scouts of America. You should know, if those who don't, that scouting nationally has lost membership. Thank goodness, still close to 3 million young men are being served, but there are places where it struggles, but not here. There is one council, last I checked, in the nation, which has been growing. In fact, has grown by over 1,000 scouts a year now for several years in a row. It is the one you have come here today to support. Can we thank the remarkable people who have led it over that last several year period? Now, as the organizers so effectively show us every year, statistics are a distant second to stories in trying to illustrate a point like this. I encourage you to try what I like to try once in a while. Just randomly, when the thought occurs to you, go to your search engine and put in Boy Scouts. I promise you a recent story, something like Ian's, will tumble out from somewhere. So I did. Last week, some young man named Brian Boatwright. He's from Orlando. He and a troop are hiking 11,000 feet in New Mexico, and the scoutmaster has a heart attack. There's no cell phone coverage at 11,000 feet in New Mexico. As I read the account, the scouts led by this young man operated as a team. Some rigged a shelter and a tarp. Some began administering CPR. And 3 or 4 of them ran 4 miles back to a base camp from which a helicopter was summoned and the fellow's life was saved. The only thing astonishing about that story is how common it is in the world of scouting here and around the country. So I just thank you so much for being here. I thank you for the privilege I've had to come and testify each year to the incredible value of what is being done, thanks to you and thanks to the people whose dollars and encouragement you provide. And I couldn't think of a better way to finish than with one more story and one more recognition. It goes to a person familiar to most folks in the room who has given his life, by and large, his working years, to young people, and to scouting in particular. Over the last 20 years, he has been on the job every day as steward to this organization and to the dollars that it is given to work with. He has led the Central Indiana Council to a 50% increase in the number of scouts, and especially important, to a doubling, more than a doubling, of the scouts from low-income families and from families in the inner city of Indianapolis. And so, in taking note of his accomplishments over that time as he leaves his post, I mean to recognize not just one person, however outstanding he is, but the whole organization he has led, and by extension each of you, for helping this community more than any other I am aware of to attack the single most heartrending and long-term single most dangerous symptom of social difficulty and decline in our entire country. So with thanks to him, but also to each of you, Scott Claybaugh, would you allow me to give you Indiana's highest honor, the Sagamore of the Wabash? Did the speaker keep? Did the speaker keep? I said, don't let him know.